Let's begin. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Sky High Stories. Evelyn Hale had once believed love was enough. Gentle by nature and sharp in mind, she carried herself with quiet grace, never loud, never demanding. Marrying Nathan Hale had pulled her into a world of extreme wealth, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and a mansion so vast it echoed with silence. To outsiders, she was the luckiest woman alive. To herself, she felt smaller every day. Pregnant and emotionally fragile, Evelyn spent most of her days alone, wandering the cold halls of the mansion, one hand often resting protectively on her growing belly. The house was beautiful but lifeless, much like her marriage. Nathan was rarely home, and when he was, his presence felt heavier than his absence. Conversations had turned into cold exchanges, affection into obligation. Nathan Hale, once ambitious and attentive, had transformed after becoming a self-made millionaire. Success hardened him. He now spoke to Evelyn with impatience, often reminding her, directly or indirectly, of her simple upbringing. He wore his wealth like armor and treated her background as a flaw he needed to hide. What no one knew was that Evelyn's simplicity was a choice, not a limitation. She had once belonged to a powerful family, one she had quietly walked away from for love. For the sake of her unborn child, Evelyn swallowed her pain. She smiled when it hurt, stayed silent when humiliated, and told herself endurance was strength. Late at night, she would stare at her phone, eyes lingering on unread messages labeled only as brothers. She never replied, yet. But silence, like sacrifice, can only last so long. Lydia entered the mansion like she already owned it. Tall, polished, and unapologetically glamorous, she wore confidence as naturally as the designer heels clicking across the marble floor. Her smile was sharp, calculating, nothing like Evelyn's soft, cautious expressions. This was not a woman who hid in the shadows. This was a woman who wanted to be seen. Nathan brought her home under the thin disguise of business. He didn't explain. He didn't ask. He simply informed Evelyn, as if her feelings no longer mattered. Lydia settled comfortably into the grand living room, examining the decor with amused disinterest, her eyes lingering on Evelyn with open judgment. The insults began subtly, then sharpened. Lydia commented on Evelyn's pregnancy with fake concern, mocking her swollen body, her loose dresses, her fragile appearance. She laughed about how difficult it must be to keep a millionaire interested while looking so ordinary. Every word was deliberate, meant to sting, meant to remind Evelyn of her place. Nathan said nothing. Worse, he smiled. A faint smirk played on his lips as if Lydia were voicing thoughts he had long kept to himself. His silence was louder than any insult. It told Evelyn everything she needed to know. The servants saw it all. Heads lowered, hands trembling, they pretended not to notice. In that house, loyalty was bought with fear, and fear was expensive. Standing there, humiliated in her own home, Evelyn finally understood the truth. She was no longer a wife. She wasn't even a person to them anymore. She was a reminder, an inconvenience, an embarrassment Nathan was desperate to erase. The night of the charity gala arrived, glittering with wealth, influence, and expectation. Nathan insisted that Evelyn attend, despite her protests. "It's important for appearances," he said, his tone cold and final. Evelyn adjusted her modest gown nervously, the heavy fabric doing nothing to ease the tension coiling in her stomach. Every mirror in the mansion reflected her unease, every glance from Nathan a silent reminder of her diminished place. At the gala, Nathan paraded Lydia at his side. She was magnetic, every inch of her commanding attention. Introduced publicly as his partner, Lydia smiled with calculated pride, the sort of smile that promised chaos. Guests whispered behind their champagne glasses. Cameras flashed endlessly, capturing every moment as if the universe itself wanted to record Evelyn's humiliation. On stage, subtle jabs from Lydia became bold. She spilled her own drink near Evelyn, laughter ringing in the air as it splashed onto Evelyn's gown. The audience froze for a moment, then murmured, sensing the tension. Lydia's words cut sharper than the champagne glass she held, a cruel commentary on Evelyn's pregnancy, her inadequacy, her lowly status. Nathan added insult to injury. Leaning close, his voice loud enough for others to hear, he made a callous remark about Evelyn, implying she was lucky anyone stayed with her at all. The room went silent. Evelyn's heart raced, her cheeks burning with shame. Sharp pain lanced through her stomach, yet she forced herself to stand tall, to hide the tremor, to endure. And in that precise, agonizing moment, something inside Evelyn snapped. A flicker of defiance, long buried under fear and love, ignited, a spark that would soon consume the humiliation she had suffered. Backstage after the gala, Evelyn stumbled into a quiet corridor, her vision blurred by tears and exhaustion. The pounding of her heart was deafening, and a sharp cramp shot through her abdomen. The stress, the constant humiliation, and the strain of carrying a child under such tension had finally taken their toll. She collapsed against the cool wall, her breathing ragged, clutching her swollen belly as if sheer will could protect her unborn child. Panic and fear coiled in her chest. This was no longer just emotional pain, it was physical danger. When Nathan arrived at the hospital, it was not Evelyn who occupied his attention. Lydia, radiant and unapologetic, walked beside him, whispering, laughing, reveling in the chaos she had created. Nathan's eyes lingered on Lydia, not Evelyn, as though the wife he had once loved had become invisible. His silence cut deeper than any words could have. The doctor's expression was grave. The emotional trauma, combined with the stress of the night, it's putting your baby at serious risk, he warned. Evelyn nodded numbly, fear gnawing at her heart. Alone in the sterile hospital room, she realized she could no longer face this alone. Her trembling hand reached for her phone. She dialed the only people who had ever protected her unconditionally, her brothers. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I need you." The line went silent for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity. Then, a familiar, steady voice replied, carrying strength, reassurance, and an unspoken promise of protection. Evelyn felt a fragile ember of hope ignite within her chest. Pain and despair had awakened something else, the knowledge that she was not, and would never again be, truly alone. Daniel and Marcus had always been forces to be reckoned with, even before Evelyn's marriage. Daniel, the older of the two, had climbed the ranks of the financial world with precision and cold intellect, commanding respect and fear in equal measure. Marcus, equally formidable, had mastered the intricacies of law and private security, his reputation for strategic thinking rivaled only by his physical prowess. Together, they had been a shield for their family, though Evelyn had never needed it, until now. Years ago, they had chosen distance. Evelyn had wanted a normal life, away from the weight of their family influence. They had let her go, watched silently from afar, proud of her independence but secretly wary of the world she had chosen. They had trusted Nathan to be worthy of her heart, unaware of the venom that had slowly crept into their sister's life. When Daniel and Marcus finally learned the truth, the mockery, the humiliation, the public degradation, their protective instincts ignited with fierce intensity. Rage bubbled alongside guilt, a dangerous cocktail that sharpened their focus. Evelyn, the gentle soul they had adored, had been reduced to a victim, and the men who loved her could not allow it to continue. Yet they did not act recklessly. This was not a moment for brute force alone. It was a time for calculated precision. Plans were whispered in the quiet of their private study, each detail measured, each step deliberate. Daniel's eyes met Marcus's, dark and determined. "He humiliated her," Daniel said, voice low and controlled. "Now, we'll erase him." For the first time in months, Evelyn's pain shifted, from helpless despair to the stirring knowledge that her brothers would stop at nothing to reclaim her dignity. The tone had changed. The game had changed. And so had the stakes. Behind the polished veneer of Nathan Hale's empire, cracks had begun to form, cracks he could not yet see. Daniel moved like a shadow through the financial world, quietly purchasing Nathan's company shares through carefully disguised shell firms. Each transaction was invisible, methodical, and perfectly legal, yet with every passing day, Nathan's grip on his empire weakened without a single clue. The billionaire's confidence remained unshaken, oblivious to the quiet storm gathering in the background. Meanwhile, Marcus dug into Lydia's past with relentless precision. Public records, private investigators, old acquaintances, nothing escaped his scrutiny. The woman who had flaunted herself as untouchable carried secrets darker than Nathan could have imagined, hidden debts, manipulation, and even crimes that could ruin her in an instant. Every detail Marcus uncovered was another piece of leverage, a weapon to be used at the right time. Nathan, in his arrogance, continued to assert control at home. Lydia, sensing weakness in her rival's inaction, pressed him to finalize a divorce from Evelyn. "She's a distraction," Lydia whispered, confident, proud, convinced she had already won. Nathan, blinded by desire and entitlement, agreed, still unaware that the real game was no longer under his control. Evelyn, meanwhile, had been moved to a private medical facility, safe from prying eyes and Lydia's cruelty. The sterile walls and protective care offered her the security she had been denied in her own home. Outside, Daniel and Marcus waited patiently, calculating every step. Timing was everything. The trap was set, the pieces in place, and the moment for action was approaching. Unseen, unnoticed, power was shifting, slowly, irrevocably, behind the scenes, and Nathan would soon realize that control was no longer his. The day of the major business conference arrived, the air thick with anticipation and polished suits. Nathan Hale entered the grand hall with his usual confidence, unaware that the stage was set for a downfall unlike any he had ever faced. The crowd's attention was on him, on the billionaire who had ruled the financial world with ruthless precision. But as the lights dimmed and the first slide flickered onto the massive screen behind the podium, Nathan froze, because the name displayed was not his, and the man stepping forward was unmistakable. Daniel Hale, Evelyn's older brother, took the stage with calm authority, commanding silence with nothing more than a look. Cameras swiveled, phones lifted, and whispers erupted throughout the room. With a measured voice, Daniel announced that Nathan's company had been legally acquired, every share now under the control of entities connected to him. But the revelation didn't stop there. Evidence of fraud, tax evasion, and even blackmail, meticulously compiled, was laid bare, each document more damning than the last. Lydia, ever confident, tried to maintain composure, but Marcus had ensured that her past could no longer be hidden. Police arrived swiftly, arresting her on sight for crimes long buried. The media exploded, flashing headlines and viral clips spreading within minutes. Nathan's face turned pale as panic consumed him. For the first time, he understood the magnitude of his arrogance, the depth of his cruelty, and most painfully, the sister he had humiliated was no longer powerless. The fall was total, public, and irreversible. The billionaire who had once thought himself untouchable now faced the consequences of his hubris. The world watched as his empire crumbled in real time. Nathan fell to his knees, the once proud billionaire reduced to desperation. His voice trembled as he begged Evelyn for forgiveness, his eyes pleading, his pride shattered. But Evelyn looked at him calmly, her expression serene, and realized that the chapter of her life with him had ended long before this moment. Forgiveness was not hers to give, not for the humiliation, not for the fear, not for the pain he had inflicted upon her while she carried his child. It was too late. The divorce was finalized swiftly, legally sealing Nathan's loss. Evelyn walked away from the courtroom with her head held high, dignity intact, and freedom reclaimed. The world no longer dictated her worth. Her family's unwavering love had reminded her that she was never alone. Daniel and Marcus stood by her side, their promises stronger than any contract. Never again would they allow anyone to harm her, never again would she face fear without protection. Weeks later, Evelyn gave birth to a healthy baby, the room filled with warmth, laughter, and quiet relief. Her child was safe, a living testament to her endurance, resilience, and the love that surrounded her. Holding her newborn, Evelyn felt a peace she had long been denied. In the final scene, she stepped outside into the sunlight, calm and composed. The mansion and the past lay behind her, powerless. Karma had found its course, family had shown its strength, and Evelyn's self-worth shone brighter than ever. She was unbroken, victorious, and finally free. The story closed with the undeniable truth: cruelty is temporary, but strength, love, and justice endure.